What's that you say? An incident between a Dutchman and an Australian? Well, who better to comment on that than good old British bias? This is usually the part of the video where I'm meant to say everyone's allowed an opinion and be respectful to others down in the comments. Nah, have fun down there. It's all engagement for me at the end of the day. The biggest talking point coming out of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was the first lap clash between Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. So let's start by running through the facts to begin with. The lights go out and Oscar Piastri gets the better start of those on the front row. This is no doubt highly confusing for Red Bull's Max Verstappen, used to looking in his mirrors as Lando Norris plummets like a 737 MAX, and the Dutchman moves across to defend from the Aussie. The pair go into the first corner line astern, and Verstappen drives over the runoff, emerging after turn 2, still in the lead of the Grand Prix. We then get a safety car thanks to the breakup of the AlphaTauri boy band, and just as we're about to go back to green, Max is handed with a 5-second penalty for gaining a lasting advantage over his competitor. Those were the facts. Are we in disagreement yet? No? Good. McLaren were in full agreement over this and think it was the just thing to do. Red Bull, meanwhile, feel that they were utterly robbed of victory on Sunday night. Now, who could have seen that one coming? Let's start with, word for word, what the steward said on this one. They, quote, reviewed the positioning/marshalling system data, video, timing, telemetry and in-car video evidence, and determined that car 81, that's Oscar Piastri for the Drive to Survive fans, had its front axle at least alongside the mirror of car 1, that's Max Verstappen for the Drive to Survive fans, prior to and at the apex of the corner. They then say, quote, in fact, car 81 was alongside car 1 at the apex, like they hadn't f***ing said it already. Either way, let's just fact check this, and yes, here's Oscar Piastri very clearly ahead of Max, just before the braking zone of turn 1. Both cars then brake for the corner. Verstappen clearly later than Piastri, as just before the apex, they're side by side. The overspeed from Verstappen's car gives him a lasting advantage around the outside of the corner, and at the apex, it's the Dutchman who's marginally ahead, judging by this image. This is what Christian Horner was also trying to prove when he rocked up blubbering to the media session, flaunting new evidence in the form of an A4 piece of paper. On said piece of A4 paper was an image from Verstappen's over-the-shoulder onboard camera, admittedly showing him ahead at what Horner claims to be the apex. Conveniently, we can't actually see the apex in this image though. If we look at the outboard shot, I'd argue the image was actually taken here, where Verstappen's front wheel is alongside the end plate of Piastri's front wing, and that kind of begs the question, what exactly are we calling an apex here? By definition, the apex is in the middle of the corner, and if we wind back to when the two cars entered this region, they're definitely more side by side than what WhatsApp man seems to claim with his image here, so nice try on that one. At the end of the day, and according to the almighty stewards, this didn't matter anyway, returning to their official reasoning, quote, based on the driver's standards guidelines, it was car 81's corner, and he was entitled to be given room. The driver's standard guidelines is a document, shared with, funnily enough, the drivers, that outlines just what is required for a corner to be theirs. It's aimed to maintain the FIA's favourite word of the week, consistency. It's also a document the public or even the media don't get to see, hence why Twitter resembles ground zero at the moment. From my extensive research, i.e. from watching the races video on the matter, which is very good by the way, and probably better than this one, anyway I'll stop being Lando Norris, there are 4 main criteria here. Piastri had to be alongside Verstappen going into the corner, he had to have control over his car, he had to keep his own car on the track, and he couldn't push Max Verstappen off the road. Okay, let's go through those again. Were they alongside? Well, yes, both going into the corner and on the apex. Did Piastri have control over his car? Well, there was no contact, so yeah, we'll give him that one too. Did he keep his own car on the circuit? Yes. If you want to know the opposite of what this looks like, we can just turn to good old Liam Lawson here. You've got a 10-second penalty for this incident because, again, consistency. Did Piastri push Verstappen off the road then? Well, that's where lies the contention. First things first, was there room for Verstappen to stay on the outside? Well, no, there's not even room for Lance Stroll's micro-penis in that gap. Would Verstappen have made the corner then? Well, that's harder to ascertain. We know the Dutchman broke later than the Aussie and was carrying a lot more speed around the outside of turn 1. McLaren seemed to argue that this meant he would never have been able to make the corner. Red Bull obviously say otherwise, and thus we have the argument. Since the stewards do love their consistency, many have been comparing this incident to the likes of Mexico or COTA from last season. In both scenarios, Verstappen was the one on the inside, and it was Lando Norris being bullied into the grandstand. In Mexico, it was a 10-second penalty for the Dutchman. In COTA, nothing at all. Now, I could take Twitter's view and start screaming consistency, or I could break these two incidents down. In fact, I'm not going to do either of those because they're completely and utterly unrelated to the matter at hand. Instead, let's go back to everyone's favourite year of Formula 1, 2021, and more specifically that season's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, where we can find a very similar incident to this. It came after the first red flag following Mick Schumacher deciding to become one with Crypto.com. The race would restart with Verstappen leading Hamilton into turn 1, the Briton to the right of screen, and like Piastri in 2025, getting the better start from those at the front. By the time Hamilton reaches the first corner, he was admittedly much further ahead than Piastri was, but the rest of the incident was largely the same. Hamilton leaves no room on the outside, forcing Max into the runoff. The Dutchman deciding, you know what, turn 2, I'm just going to take back the lead. We can talk about incidents at other circuits all we want, and while granted, they may be more recent, and the way matters are reviewed has changed rather significantly since 2021, this is the closest we'll get to an incident for comparison. So what happened here? Well, Nikita Mazepin would happen, but after that we got another red flag, at which point Red Bull were given an offer, because it was 2021. Then race director Michael Massey asked Red Bull to place Max behind Hamilton on the grid for the restarts, which the team accepted. I'll be honest, I'm not sure what would have happened if Jonathan Wheatley had just told Massey to go f*** himself at this point. So Red Bull accepted that they were in the wrong, and the rest of the 2021 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix went by without any problems whatsoever. Okay, well it didn't, but let's not get into that again. It just begs the question then, why take the risk last weekend? We live in a stewarding world now where you won't be met with offers like a reboot of Deal or No Deal. Instead, the officials will just expect teams to realise when they're in the wrong and just give the position back. No need for an investigation, the stewards can go back to sleep, everybody wins. There were points in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix where Max Verstappen looked to have the pace over Oscar Piastri. The Australian even commented on that himself post-race. Now, granted, hindsight is 2020, but given Red Bull had literally been in this position before, surely the safer option would have just been to allow Oscar through and attempt to fight back through the rest of the race. He didn't though, and the resultant 5-second penalty was appropriate in my book. That of course limited him at his stop, and the race was over from there on out. Red Bull may have run crying to the media now, but in my humble opinion, they could easily have avoided it. The move was just too close to call and too risky to leave Verstappen out front. If anything, Red Bull are lucky this wasn't worse. If we return to the FIA's official reasoning, quote, ordinarily the baseline penalty for leaving the track and gaining a lasting advantage is 10 seconds. However, given this was a lap 1 and turn 1 incident, we considered that to be a mitigating circumstance and imposed a 5-second time penalty instead. Then we get all the right to repeal bollocks at the end, and it also appears they've hired someone called the Stewards. Tell you what, they must have been born for that role. Can we learn anything from this though? Well, given it's WhatsApp man's supposed new evidence that seems to be leading the majority of the arguments come Monday morning, should we potentially clamp down the definition over what an apex is now? Or if you ask me, should we just gas the stewarding room and let these guys go racing? Actually, that's probably a little bit harsh, but you get the point. Those are my takes though. You can do what you want with it. You can agree with it, disagree with it, hunt me down and murder me over it. Actually, don't do that bit. Just leave a hateful comment down below instead. That at least helps out the algorithm. Do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, drop it a like and get subscribed, as I'll be uploading all throughout the 2025 season. Big thank you to all the members and patrons. You can go there for some exclusive ramblings and nonsense, and all relevant links are also down in the description below. I'll be back soon with something else I just don't quite know yet. In the meantime, have a good one.